You ever feel stuck in a thought pattern that just fuels a habit you really want to change? Well, a new study has just uncovered this fascinating and honestly pretty surprising link between overthinking and problematic pornography use. So let's break down what they found out. And just to give you some context here, get this. In 2023, the top two pornography websites, when you combined them, actually got more total visits than TikTok. Now, this isn't about passing judgment at all. It's just about acknowledging, this is a huge part of our digital world. Okay, so the research we're diving into, it's not about casual viewing, not at all. It focuses on a very specific condition called problematic pornography use, or PPU for short. That's the clinical term for when someone's use becomes excessive, feels totally out of control, and it's causing real distress in their life. And it's really important to note that in this particular study, only 0.8% of the people involved were actually at risk for PPU. So the focus here isn't on how common it is, but really on the psychological mechanics for the folks who do struggle with it. So this led the researchers to ask a really key question. Does a specific mental habit, what you and I would just call overthinking, does that play a role in PPU? The official term for this, by the way, is rumination. So, what exactly is rumination? Well, it's that tendency to get stuck on negative thoughts and feelings, just replaying them over and over and over in your mind. But here's the thing. It turns out not all rumination is created equal. Researchers actually point to two different types of this overthinking. First up is what they call brooding. You can just think of it like a hamster wheel in your brain. You're just passively stuck, stewing in all these negative feelings. But then there's reflection, which is way more like using a map. Here, you're actively trying to understand the problem so you can find a solution. See the difference? One traps you, the other one guides you. And that leads us to the central question that a major study in Hungary wanted to answer. What's the real link between problematic pornography use and these two very, very different ways of thinking? So, to figure this out, they followed nearly 3,000 young adults for a whole year. They measured their PPU and rumination levels right at the start, and then they did it again 12 months later. This let them see how these things actually influenced each other over time. All right, so the first big finding was pretty much universal. For both men and women, higher levels of PPU at the beginning of the study actually predicted more overthinking of both types a year later. This kind of suggests the habit itself can create that mental distress that leads to even more rumination. But what about the other way around? Does the way you think end up predicting your future behavior with pornography? And this is where the story gets really compelling, because the answer, well, it's not so simple. This is where it gets really interesting. The researchers found a crucial difference, and it actually split right down gender lines. The link from rumination to PPU was not the same for men and women. Okay, so here's the study's most surprising result. For women, more of that passive hamster wheel brooding actually predicted an increase in PPU a year down the road. But for men, more of the active problem-solving reflection predicted a decrease in PPU. Wow. I mean, the authors themselves put it perfectly. They said brooding can act as a potential risk factor for PPU, while reflection can be a protective factor that actually helps people pull away from it. So what's the thinking here? Well, for women, brooding might create this vicious negative feedback loop, right? The stewing leads to using pornography to cope, which then just creates more negative feelings. For men, though, reflection seems to work like an off-ramp. It's a way for them to analyze their own behavior and actively self-regulate, which helps them cut back on problematic use. So the crucial point, the real takeaway here is this. It's not just that you think about your problems, it's how you think about them. Your mental approach could be the very thing that either locks you into a bad cycle or gives you the key to get out. And that leaves all of us with a really powerful question to think about, one that goes way beyond just the study. When you're facing a challenge or maybe a habit you want to change, does your inner voice just spin in circles? Or does it actually help you find your way forward? Is it a hamster wheel or is it a compass?